Hello Bishes, welcome back to my channel. So as many of you may know already, the internet and social media is a pretty difficult place to be as an artist right now. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about my personal strategy as an artist on social media and the things I do to pretty much create content but without overly exerting myself and creating 10 different things every day, and how I pretty much just repurpose one comic that I make originally on Instagram for many other things, because I feel like a lot of artists like me do various different jobs at once. I work one full-time job in animation, I also am publishing my own book, and on the side I run my own social media platforms and create content for that, and all of those things together can get pretty chaotic. So I feel like I found a strategy that has been working for me as of lately, and again with this method it's kind of been helping me grow at a decent pace. It's not like I'm blowing up overnight or anything, but it's just how I've been able to healthily manage my stuff as of lately. So hopefully the things that I mentioned in this video will be helpful to you, because I understand how overwhelming this day and age can be online, and hopefully by talking about all of my tips in just one contained video, it can make it a little bit less overwhelming for some artists out there. But yeah, so what are we waiting for? Let's get drawing. So the format that I have for my comics now are 2056 pixels by 2056 pixels, and I keep the resolution at 300. And I usually also just keep the whole coloring thing to CMYK, because you never know if you're gonna print it into a book. Again, you're just milking as much content as possible from your art, and I know it disgusts me that I have to say that. So okay, so I have my document, and what I usually do on this is I will just thumbnail out the idea as quickly as possible. Like, I always keep different notebooks that have different ideas. I just write everything down the moment I think about it, because we think we're gonna remember things, but you're not. Just trust me and write down your ideas, and if you're ever looking for something to draw, just go back to your notebook and there were your 10 different ideas you wrote down. So the comic that I want to do today is about my boyfriend and his obsession with just white t-shirts, and how it might seem silly, but it turns into something meaningful because I like making comics with some level of emotion. So let me just thumbnail this out for a moment. So basically, Instagram allows around 10 panels per carousel post, but I am doing my best to just keep things to less than 10. So I just pretty much leave these notes for myself, because I don't want to spend too much time just investing in the thumbnails, and as you move on in finishing the comic, your thoughts are going to change about certain things. So I like to leave things a little bit loose for myself, so that I'm not glued to like this whole idea, and that, you know, whatever I feel later can still happen. And then afterwards is when I will start line arting stuff, and during that phase is when a lot of spontaneous stuff happens too. So let's get line arting. So usually between the thumbnailing and line art, I would say that kind of takes maybe a few hours of one day, and then coloring and adding the text bubbles and dialogue will take a few hours of another day. So I'll say in total it really only takes 2 days to finish one comic, and that's without using 2 full days. It's just like a few random hours split between 2 days, and that's usually my process and timeline for making comics. So yeah, I don't really have any particular preferences when it comes to brushes or anything. I just use kind of whatever Clip Studio Paint has and just look up random fonts online. So to prepare it for social media, of course, I make sure to have exports of each of the panels in a JPEG format, and I make sure I also have the time lapse of it exported, because that could be used for a future reel. And as I said in the beginning of this video, make sure to have your files in a CMYK format from the get-go if you do intend to eventually print it. So afterwards, with the comic itself, what I normally do is I first distribute it on my Patreon, which currently only has early access or work in progresses because I currently am not in a state where I can afford to create more content to make new tiers. So the most I can do for Patreon right now is to create early access and work in progresses, and that's where you can share the behind the scenes of your comics, the sketches, and early access. And once it is time to actually reveal it to the public, I'll just post it on Instagram as I normally do. And one thing I kind of learned with hashtags is maybe each time you post a new post, try to switch up the hashtags every once in a while and don't repeat the same ones too much, because I don't know, I feel like having different hashtags will at least expose your art to different groups of people instead of the same ones who are always following the same hashtags. And I would say that within like the first 30 minutes or so, to try to stay attentive to the people who comment on it and respond to it. I normally do this because I know the first few people to comment are usually genuine supporters and followers of my work. Like, yes, you'll still get bots here and there and I just delete those, but I will make sure to respond to the first comments within like the first half an hour or so. I feel like this kind of also helps with your engagement, because when you respond to people's comments, they might come back to your work and you're giving people kind of like a reminder to come back and check out your work. So after that, I also share the post on my stories to, again, get more exposure through my platform as much as possible. Every time I have a new post, I'll say new post, because I sometimes feel like your audience on your stories versus your actual feed are sometimes different people, and sometimes the people who miss your feed might see your stories, and sometimes the people who miss your stories might see your feed, vice versa. You just want to take all the chances you can to expose your art to a broader range of people. So that's what I do to keep that in mind. So in terms of my posting schedule, what I normally strive to do, but of course this sometimes changes according to life events or unexpected circumstances arising, I usually try to post one comic per week, and I try to post 2 reels or 1 reel and 1 illustration. So those are the combinations I try to try out throughout different weeks. Nowadays, with the algorithm just switching up all the time, I feel like it almost doesn't matter what you post every week as long as you're just posting something. But this is just what I personally do and what I find works best for me and my work schedule, because it's not like I can create 2 comics per week, but then I can satisfy the remaining days with the reels or work in progresses made from other pre-existing comics or the comic I just uploaded. I will then let my YouTube audience know, because I think cross-promoting is very important, just because, again, you have different audiences, even though people might say like, oh, I follow you on Instagram and I follow you on YouTube. That's not the case for everyone, and you're going to always be probably getting new followers from each platform. So what I do is I will create a community post on YouTube. I will share maybe just 1 panel of the comic that I just did, just as a preview, or however many I feel like is necessary, and then I'll post the link to my Instagram comic itself, and you might get the chance of people, following you on Instagram through YouTube. It's good to just kind of diversify the platforms you're on and just cross-promote, and I know it's a lot to juggle, but I would just say just have 2. And in addition to that, another great reason for having the time-lapse option on is so that you can make YouTube videos with your time-lapse. I pretty much, in my previous videos, just exported these time lapses, explained what tools I used on the side, and did a voiceover talking about any topic that I wanted to. And that's the beauty of having the time-lapse option on, because you can now create Reels, TikToks, and YouTube videos. My goal on YouTube is to post once a week, but sometimes that can be every other week. I don't know. It depends on my life at the moment. But the great thing, once again, about YouTube is once you become monetized, you can start making money off of the videos you create, which once again means this piece of artwork can help you make money. So what's next? Well, the Reels game is now a thing, and so is TikTok. So Nowadays, that's where the time lapses and those video exports come into play. I used to not do this before TikTok or before Reels, but now I think you just have to remind yourself that everything is content. So I will always export a video export through Clip Studio Paint or Procreate. Those are currently my top 2 favorite art creating programs because they give you the option to record your time lapse without a third-party app. You know how back in the old days people used to use like some third-party program to screen record, and it's like this whole process because you'll have 2 programs running on your computer and it just slows everything down. So that's why whenever I open a new Clip Studio Paint file, I always make sure the record time-lapse option is on. When I'm on Instagram and when I'm on TikTok, a part of the game is to be a consumer. And I know it took me like 2 years to really get onto the Reels and TikTok game because I don't want to spend too much energy on it when it first started, when I didn't know where it was going, but now it kind of seems like it's a little bit more permanent based on what everyone is saying. So I don't spend hours on TikTok or Reels, but it's like every time I do go on it, I kind of consciously watch each TikTok or Reel and I ask myself, do I like the audio of this? Do I like the idea of this? And a lot of artists nowadays have really great before and after types of videos. So that's where things like the time lapse comes in really handy, because in your time lapse, you have moments of yourself recording the sketches and then the finalized version. So there are some really short reels that require not much video editing experience. This could be like your beginner Reels videos. One of the apps that I use the most that is not on Reels or TikTok is InShot. I know a lot of people use this for other things, but I actually used this app like a long time ago when I used to do kickboxing, so it's very random how relevant InShot became. Other ways that I create video content instead of just having the time lapse is I will literally just use my phone to record whatever is on my screen, because I think it's good to, you know, again, diversify the types of videos you make. Don't just have time lapses only, but maybe sometimes show what your artwork looks like in your workspace, because you don't want to have this formula that people will always expect, because again, I feel like in this day and age of social media, you just got to keep people on their toes, switch things up every once in a while, and that's how you kind of keep people interested in a very subconscious way. So once I create the reel on Instagram, I will also share it on TikTok. And then lastly, here are some ways that you can maximize, you know, the fact that you created a comic and you can probably sell it in some way, shape, or form. So I already created this comic and I have a few other good ones that are also in this style. What can I do with that? Well, again, that is where the CMYK option comes into play. So because I leave everything in CMYK nowadays, I didn't do it in the past and that was my mistake, but now I have learned. Create everything in CMYK, and I can create a zine, a self-published book, or some physical form of this. And if this is not a comic and it's just an illustration, I can make a print of it. So one of the services that I recently started to use is called Meeksam or Meeksam. I don't know. That's how I currently printed my Doodlebish's book, and I currently don't have it in the mail yet, but I did hear a lot of great things from other artists and creators, so I am assuming that they work well, but either way, they are still one printing option that is pretty reasonable for anyone who is thinking of just printing, self-publishing, and you can sell this on your Etsy shop or in a convention or somewhere in an artist alley. You know, this is just one idea of selling your work. Another thing is, if you don't want to print it, maybe you can create a tutorial online. You can just walk through people through the steps of how you create your artwork or your comics. And the great thing about that is because you have your time lapse too, and you can create a whole zip file and upload it on Google Drive and then sell people the course or the tutorial of how you create your artwork. And you can also sell that on your Etsy shop, which is exactly what I did with my very old comic series, Succubishes. I pretty much did the same thing where I walk through people how I created my comics, and I included a time-lapse and video walkthrough of how I did that all in a Google Drive. So just from creating this one comic, I pretty much talked about how you can upload this and share it on Instagram. You can promote it on YouTube. You can also create a YouTube video out of it, out of the tutorial, and you can create Reels and TikToks, and you can also create a self-published book or a zine or a print, and you can also create a tutorial out of it where you kind of just combine all of your raw files and maybe just walk people through your process. Like, I feel like that's a good number of ways that you can maximize just one piece of artwork that you created. And while all of these steps are really tedious, I will say once you get the hang of it and it becomes intuitive, it's really easy to do. It is just tedious. It's really annoying that it kind of had to come to this with artists, because it's just like the internet now wants you to create videos of your artwork. They want you to sing with your artwork. They want you to dance to your artwork. They want you to do all of this shit with your art now, and it's not as easy as just posting it online. I wish that things didn't have to be like this, but I feel like I just have to learn about how things are now in order to just continue growing, and I hope that maybe this will help somebody out there too who has been too overly paralyzed by how overwhelming it is to be an artist on social media nowadays. So I hope that by stating everything in one packaged video, you can just already have at least 5 ways to figure out how to maximize the most of one piece of artwork without having to create 5 different pieces of artwork. And that is how I pretty much survive on social media nowadays as an artist. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.